¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Hope everyone's having an awesome Wednesday. It is Friday Junior, folks. Welcome. Welcome, Yellow King, Derry Bennett, Quad Bennett, Heat, Michael Hasser. Welcome, everybody. Hope everyone's doing all right. Monday, August 19th, Thursday, August 22nd. Guess. I don't know. Is it TwitchCon? I'm doing all right. I don't know if you guys have seen, Trump is currently doing another bizarre press conference, and it's pretty bizarre. Yeah, exactly. He's calm but insane. That's a perfect way of describing it. Yeah, it is very, very bizarre. Ah, Jesus Christ.
So, I don't know if you heard the question. You've spoken about God saving your life. That I've spoken passionately about it. And something happened because that was a miracle. I never looked that way. The audience was massive and it was in front of me.
Yeah, another way of putting it is weird.
The graph, that was a graph on, as you all know now that it's very, I think everyone knows it very well, but it showed the great numbers on illegal immigration. It was the lowest point we've ever had. And it was one that I use less than 20% of the time. It's always at the end of the speech, not at the beginning of the speech. And it's always on the left side, not the right side. And yet, for some reason, I called it. It's not on a teleprompter. I do things largely.
Yeah, it's saved by his racism.
Because it's hard to hold an audience if you're going to go for an hour and a half or 2 hours reading a script. And I just talked about it, and I moved to my right, turned sharply to my right. Pew. And if I didn't do that, I'm not here with you. So, yeah, God has something to do with it. It's a miracle, and God had something to do with it. And maybe it's we want to save the world. And this world is going down.
Yeah, man. But I guess God wasn't on the side of his supporter, right? I guess God wasn't there for his for his supporter and the people that got injured.
Eric and Don both told me from 130 yards. I said, well, that's pretty far away, isn't it? They said, no, that's like a 1-foot putt with, weapons like the one being used. Plus, he was a good shooter. This guy was a good shooter. He went to the range and shot a lot. And he was supposed to be a pretty good shooter. They said a bad shooter would hit the target almost 100% of the time. So something happened. And I have to say,
Sofa King weird.
Secret Service sniper did an amazing job. He had 5 seconds to find the target and hit the target, and he hit the target within, think of this, 5 seconds. And he was much further away because he was over here, and this other person was over there. So you have to give credit. And I have to also say about the Secret Service, when I was hit, I knew it because when I touched, there was blood pouring all over my hand. I said, I guess I know what that is. And I was going down for protection. And they were screaming, get down, get down. There was bullets. And those Secret Service guys were, and Person Kate, they were on top of me in a matter of, I think, 3 seconds. It was time dead. And bullets were coming out. I would hear the bullet. I didn't realize you could hear it, but now I know very well. Those bullets were going right over my head. They were there and very brave. There was nobody that said, I'm not going to be going there. They just they were there very quickly, and they were very brave. There were mistakes made. Obviously, he shouldn't have been up there. The roof should have been taken care of. And there were mistakes
Find my
made.
shoes.
There's no question about it. But there was a lot of bravery. Also, we have to remember that. Okay, thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about credit card debt for just a second. You've got all
It
these
reached a
items.
record.
It's a record.
Right, credit card.
48% up. And many families going into debt just to pay for groceries.
Yeah.
What's your message to Americans right now that you can make America affordable again?
Well, I would say my message to them. So he said, credit card debt is at the all-time high. It's never been like this. What's your message to America? How are we going to solve that, and what will they do? You know what I think they should do? They should, on November 5th or sooner, if it's early voting, which largely it is, which is ridiculous. We should have one-day voting, paper ballots. We should have voter ID, and we should have proof of citizenship, because people are voting and people are going on now without citizenship. But we should do it, and maybe we'll be able to get that done too. It's one of the things I want to do.
Yeah, so they should play the accordion. Like, I want, like, is it possible to get like accordion like noises that I can plug in? And like every time he does this, I'll just like play accordion noises. Anyways,
They don't want discarded by the fake news because they don't want people to see what she said just a year ago and 2 years ago. I've never seen anything like it. Even my statement on waiters, waitresses, caddies, a lot of great people that drive cars, no tax on tips. All of a sudden, out of the blue, she comes out. That was months ago I said that. And she came out and she said, no tax on tips. She could have at least said, you know.
okay, so anyways.
20 million people, and I believe it's higher than that. People say 13, 14, 12, 10, but now they're all up to around 12, 13, 14. They have no idea because you have millions and millions of what they call gotaways, the gotaways. Gotaways are people that pour into our country. We have no idea who they are. That's the worst of all. But she allowed at least 20 million people to invade our country.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just meandering for another half hour of the same talking points about immigration, climate change denial, things like that. No tax on tips is such a bad policy. I tend to agree because essentially what you would get or could possibly foster is a system where like the only method of payment is it will be just like trying to evade taxes through tips.
Country, and she wants to give them all citizenship and free government health care.
Yeah, so like, yeah, xenophobia. He went on to say, like, he even, man, this really actually pissed me off. I think it was actually this section right here.
And let them raid Medicare and Social Security, which will, again, she will destroy Medicare, she will destroy Social Security. And frankly, there's nothing she can do about it once this happens. There's nothing she can do about it. She called for abolishing ICE. These are great patriots who are tougher than anybody in this audience. Some of those people, I know them over there, some of those men and a couple of the women, to be honest, they're tough as hell, but they don't want to fight MS-13. I've seen it. They go into Long Island has had a lot. We got them out. But now they're coming back because of weak policy and because of things that she wants to do, like defund the police. You know she wants to defund the police. Now, she has since said, no, I don't want to do that anymore. The one thing I see with politicians, they always go back to where they were. She wanted to defund the police, and she wanted to abolish ICE. I was going to say that these ICE people are incredible patriots. They're tough as hell, and they go into a pack of MS-13 gang members, the toughest in the world, probably the toughest gangs in the world. They come from different parts of South America, and they want to come in and in Long Island, not too recently, but recently, they carved up with a knife two beautiful 16-year-old girls who were walking to school. And the reason they used a knife instead of shooting them is very simple, because it's more painful. They wanted to watch them agonize.
That's right. MS-13 was created in California.
Out of our country. Well,
Yeah, we
have
should
to
get
put
rid
them
of
in
tips
jail
and
because
pages
we don't
and just pay a living wage. Yep.
want them back. Sometimes you have to put them in jail because their country doesn't want them back. They'll send them back the way they do. Just so you know, I know all of the people that we're dealing with more than when I took over. It was 750.
Anyways, at some point in this meandering ramble, he talks about he tries to portray a single payer system of healthcare as like some kind of bad communist idea. He says that private healthcare that people pay a lot of money for is superior. Is superior, and if you have government healthcare, you're gonna have long waits and all this other nonsense, and it's communism. So I'm not sure if I'm falling asleep because of his voice or because I didn't get great sleep last night. I don't know. It was difficult to listen to. I paid attention for a few minutes before I logged in. Kamikaze and welcome. Kamikaze with a tier 1 sub for 5 months. Heck yeah. Thank you.
Do bridges, we'll do roads, we'll do things that we need, but we're not going to be spending it away fired up by diesel.
Yeah, this is the climate
He said,
change denial.
If that's the case, sir, you would have to rebuild every single bridge and road in America because the weight is so enormous. It wouldn't be able to go on the bridges and all of the different weight-bearing roads in America. Ugly. We're not going to happen with us. We're going to open up tracks of and nothing's going to happen. Everyone's going to be peaceful because they were afraid of Trump. Now, I don't like saying that I said that. I would say maybe they respected Trump. But he said they were afraid of Trump. They didn't know where he was coming from, and they were really afraid of him.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, yeah, he went on to lie about single-payer system, climate change denial, I don't even know, like, what the point of this is. Can somebody, like, explain why he has all this random food there? Is it to, like, illustrate, like, the price of groceries? I don't get it.
They didn't put a picture. They got a great artist to do. And it's one of the reasons that New York is dying. Nobody wants to come in. No companies want to come at a city level. And they put you into an area where you have 3% Republican vote. It's all a rigged deal, just like Fani, F-A-N-I, Fani, with her boyfriend. And I think that's been discredited, too. They've been discredited. But think of it. They don't want me to be a little bit nasty. They want to put me in prison. They want to put... It's never happened before in the history of...
I did nothing wrong and they indicted me. He's probably prop for grocery prices, yeah. Propping and promoting, but it's really about inflation. Right. Anyways, enough of this meandering nonsense. Yeah. Man. The desperation that he's willing to do this again. To do this random press conference again is just wild. He started this about an hour ago. And he's still going. Given the fact that, like, he's getting some cheering behind, I think he's, like... He has a crowd of his supporters. And it doesn't seem like he has any confrontational media there, so yeah, whatever. Anyways, so before we get started, folks, thank you both. Before we get started, don't forget, folks, if you want to support the channel, there are many different ways. Keep liking the stream on YouTube, follow here on Twitch, subscribe, do all the awesome stuff. Consider checking out the merch store. It's pretty freaking awesome, if I do say so myself. I'm very proud of that merch store. And join the Discord, folks. Join the Discord. We do movie nights every last Saturday of the month. This month, we will be doing Dune number 2. We actually streamed the first Dune. I think the first or the second Saturday movie event. One of those. It was one of the early movie events that we did. We streamed the first Dune, and now we're gonna do Dune number 2. That's right. The spice be flowing. So join the Discord, and if you want to participate, you can hang out with us. Last Saturday, I believe, is the 31st. Yes, the last Saturday of August is the 31st. So put that on your calendar, folks. Let's get started. Let's start over here.
If Fox News lets me on the stage for the debate, I will win the election.
The thoroughly enjoyable to listen to RFK Jr. has attempted to join the Kamala Harris campaign.
Put me on Fox News and let me debate, and I'll win the election. Sure, bud.
So, this is such a bizarre story because in what world would Kamala Harris want to take an RFK Jr. endorsement, not to mention in exchange to actually give him something? What? Are you stupid? The answer is yes. So here is the recent news.
Yeah,
So,
and like, what incentive would that give? He's taking, at this point, at this stage of the game, he's taking more votes away from Trump than he would be from the Democratic ticket. So, like, he's got nothing. He's got no leverage to negotiate here.
RFK Jr., the independent presidential candidate whose standing has dropped in the polls, I'll get to that later, sought a meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris to discuss endorsing her in exchange for a promise of a cabinet post, according to two people briefed on the outreach who insisted on anonymity to discuss the private conversations. His effort has been unsuccessful, obviously. The news was first reported by the Washington Post.
The Secretary of Dead Bear Brainworms, exactly.
We've reached out repeatedly through the highest level intermediaries, Mr. Kennedy wrote in a text message on Wednesday night. Quote, "We've been told that they have no interest in talking with me." Now, I wonder why. So even apart from just RFK Jr. generally, a lot has occurred over the past several weeks here. So in the past 6 weeks, Kennedy has apologized for an alleged sexual assault, has been forced to explain why he staged the death of a bear cub in New York City's Central Park, and has had to deny eating a dog.
Jeez. Whew. There was a brief period where he was taking some Dem votes in polls, but that was really about Biden, not RFK. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, Kamala Harris is seeking the eating a dog endorsement. The very important eating a dog, hiding a bear cub in Central Park endorsement. This is the way to win the presidency. So, as Aaron Blake here, who I believe is the Washington Post, let me just confirm that. Yes, the Washington Post senior political reporter. As he writes here, Washington Post reports RFK Jr. sought meeting with Harris to cut a deal to drop. I said that already. Worth noting, she has little reason to want him out. He's hurting Trump more now.
Exactly.
So he draws about twice as many right-leaning / Trump leaners as left-leaning Harris leaners. So check this out. Trump losing ground when polls include third-party candidates. So Trump drops by 2 in every scenario here, or I should say in every poll. He drops when they include third-party candidates. The Washington Post, or I should say the New York Times here, goes on to say, on Wednesday night, Mr. Kennedy wrote, quote, "I've always argued that we should be willing to talk with each other across party lines. I'm willing to meet with leaders of both parties to discuss the possibility of a unity government."
Yeah, like this is also the same dude who's running a campaign, essentially saying like to break away from both parties. Like I'm pretty sure like his slogan is "Declare your independence" or something like that. Cat Pig, welcome.
This is a guy who is simply out for himself. Now, look, he has, I won't say to his credit because he isn't the only person saying this, or isn't the first person to say this, but there are correct critiques of the system. Obviously, this first past the post system, that is a two-party system, there are a lot of structural critiques of the system that RFK is correct about. But this is a vanity run. I mean, we'll get to it in a second here. He tried to get a meeting with, or he got a meeting with Trump, but tried to get a position in his government when it looked like Trump was going to win. Now that it looks like Kamala Harris is going to win, he's trying to see what he can get from Kamala Harris. It's so blatant. So on Thursday, and this after he wrote this, and I guess got a lot of backlash from his fans because his fans are largely right leaning. On Thursday, however, he wrote a long post on social media attacking Harris and dismissing the idea that he would endorse her. Quote, "I have no plans to endorse Kamala Harris for president. I do have a plan to defeat her." Come on.
Oh man, hey, if he gets 5% of the vote, it would be I would be genuinely shocked. I'd sign that summary of RFK's campaign. So funny that she said no. Yeah, like she's got like nothing for him. There's no leverage here. There's no reason to make a deal of any kind. And personally, I don't think she would want his endorsement either way, even for free. Okay, even for free. I'd be shocked too, but then I also didn't see Trump or Brexit winning. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear. What a leech! I thought he was more into brainworms. Exactly.
You're not defeating her. What are we doing? This is so stupid. Earlier in the year, Kennedy was polling at around 10% nationally, but has dropped to 5% over the past few months.
Breaking news. A controversial Trump coin is sparking heated debate across the nation. In an unprecedented
Such bizarre ads. Brainworms, what you want is a brain slug.
Kamala Harris entering the race, replacing Joe Biden, has completely eliminated one of Kennedy's big talking points about the race. How, we shouldn't go with these two old people. We gotta get some new blood in there. Well, now you dropped, bro. You're polling worse now. So while you still have there's still again a correct critique of the system. You are not the right person to make that critique, and you are only losing support now. Kennedy has lost. So I guess the Democratic leaning vote that Kennedy did have when Biden was in has now coalesced around Kamala Harris. Because again, the dissatisfaction was with Joe Biden.
Correct.
And his age. Mostly about his age. But also about, of course, his position on Israel as well, or with Israel. So now that he's been replaced, a lot of that support has simply gone back to where it was going to go had it not been Biden on the ticket. Now it's Harris. It's gone with her. It's wild to see how this guy is trying to utilize what little power he has to try and get a position for himself. So I'm not going to this call. So this is the call between him and Trump. It is so rambling and stupid. Like this is a lot of the text from it. It is just like Trump talking about vaccines. It's so hard to listen to. But this is the part that is important. Trump says, "Anyway, I would love you to do something, and I think it would be so good for you. and so big for you. So apparently, two people familiar with Mr. Kennedy's campaign confirmed that advisors to Mr. Trump had raised the possibility of a cabinet post with people close to Mr. Kennedy, but said the discussions were fluid and inconclusive. Because it is Donald Trump, you cannot possibly trust Trump to give you anything. So at some point, it's possible RFK drops out and backs Trump because there's some kind of promise that he's going to get something. But Trump is not somebody that cares about keeping promises. So it would be a complete gamble for Kennedy to actually do that. It's also a gamble for him to continue on if he's getting nothing out of this.
Right.
So he may just drop out because it's kind of a waste of time. But he appears.
Does he have like a book coming out or something? Because like he's yeah, he's not gonna get very far
in his ability here. So this is him on Sean Hannity.
Are you in this to the end? Are you in this till Election Day?
Yes.
Okay. Next time we have you back,
And
I want to ask you about...
if Fox News lets me on the stage for the debate, I will win the election.
If Fox News lets you on they like every media group, you
on
have to
the
show
stage
a
for the
certain
debate.
I don't know. I don't make up the rules, but there are rules. You have to show X amount of percentage of.
Well, Sean, they're making up rules. They're making up rules. If we had the presidential debating committee, I would be on the stage.
Are you?
Sure, bud. Sure. Hildebeest rating with a party of 22. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate the raid. Welcome, everybody. Folks, if you have not seen me before, I do the news, I do the politics. I am A Difficult Truth. We are here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you enjoy your stay, consider hitting the follow button, as a few of you have already done. Thank you. Welcome in. Thank you, Hildebeest. Thank you for bringing your wonderful community. Welcome, Dory B. Elron, welcome. Bo Mashina, how worms ate my brain and sanity. Good to see you, indeed. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. If he doesn't yet, he will do soon. I have I have a book coming out on a podcast. Yeah, exactly. That's guaranteed, right? If he's not going around doing like a book tour, essentially, I would wager that something is coming down the pipeline later. A book, a podcast, something.
Okay. First off, again, let me acknowledge, yes, there is a problem with the system. Yes, as much as I don't like RFK, I think there should be more people on these stages in a debate, because just for the simple fact that there should be more voices out there diversifying the conversation around political issues. Not that RFK does that all that much. He does it in the wrong direction. But regardless, there should be more voices out there on a stage in these debates. That said, the idea that if RFK were on a debate stage, on, I guess, Fox News in this case, that he would win the election based on a debate
ludicrous.
Is completely insane. Completely ahistorical, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, is obvious bullshit, and is a waste of everyone's time. So Sean Hannity here clearly is trying to push RFK out of the race. Are you really going to continue this race? Are you really going to stay in this race? He doesn't want RFK in this because he's currently hurting Trump. To be honest, I'm not even sure why Hannity's having RFK on. I don't think it's helping Trump by continuing to give a voice to Kennedy. Again, not saying Kennedy should be silenced out of media. I don't want to hear from RFK, but when it comes to having more voices on television, I think it's important to have differing voices and voices that challenge the two-party system. But bringing RFK on when clearly Hannity wants RFK to be out of the race is not helping his agenda. But it's just such a bizarre fight. I mean, you have there are two other third-party candidates, at least two other. I think there's a third one. I believe the Libertarian as well. But I know of, Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate. Then you have Cornel West running as an independent. Like, I rather hear from them than RFK. Again, not that especially when it comes to Jill Stein, I don't really care for the Green Party strategy of not doing anything until it's time for the presidential election. But they have ideas that are worth discussing on television, ones that don't often get discussed, that are worth discussing. RFK doesn't really have a whole lot to offer any conversation. But he
Yeah, the libertarian candidate, Oliver. That's actually, I wouldn't be opposed to that idea, having like two separate debates, right? Yeah. An old man in mental decline, an orange man in mental decline, another old man in mental decline because Worms ate his brain, walked into a bar. And they all ran for president at one point. That's the joke. Were people already worn out by old men shouting at each other? I don't think RFK would all be that appealing. Trump is shitting bricks now as he looks so bad he's not facing Biden. Yeah, he is. He is. Cornel West would be a neat Secretary of State. I actually wouldn't mind that.
he's in here trying to do what he can for himself. I don't know
No, Cornel West. Not Kanye
where
West.
this is all going to go. Regardless if he stays in or leaves, I still think the advantage right now is with Harris. Again, the election is not over. People actually have to vote. But the way the momentum is moving right now, the way things are going, the way these states are clearly moving towards Kamala Harris and how she's coalescing the vote that, at the very least, Joe Biden had in 2020, and I think possibly growing that vote larger when it comes to especially young voters. The way it's moving is still, the advantage is still with Kamala Harris. But RFK trying to get something out of this, out of the momentum that Harris has, is so weird when he this entire time has been focusing most of his attacks on the Democratic Party.
Right. And now is asking for a position, like to negotiate for a position in the cabinet. That's just
showcase
wild.
that he is, out for himself. Not that he's the only politician that does that. Of course not. One of many doing that. But when you have somebody who is trying to challenge the system for their clear intent to be just about themselves, are you really at that point challenging the system, or are you just trying to be a part of it?
Yeah. Cornel West, yes. I'm not going to stand Kamala, but if it's a choice between her and Trump, it's no real choice at all. Thank F Biden stood down. Well, I agree. Thank goodness Biden stepped aside.
So we are now just 1 week away from Kamala Harris's big speech at the Democratic National Convention, where her campaign is expected to get another polling bump. But right now, I want to take some time to talk about where she's at currently, because multiple polls indicate that she is continuing to surge. And on top of that, she's defying everyone's expectations in key metrics. So let me show you what I mean. So a poll conducted by the New York Times and Siena College finds that Harris is now leading Trump in 3 key battleground states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Now, her lead is within the margin of error, so keep that in mind, but contrast her numbers with Biden's numbers from May, and you can see he was losing in all 3 of those states. Now,
Sorry, I forget you don't do the sweary thing. Yeah, this is. I try to keep it as PG as possible. You guys are good, but yeah. Did you get a sample of a printed tee? I was wondering how it washed. I got a printed sweater, a printed sweater, because I wasn't sure how it was going to show up. It actually didn't turn out to be too bad. I just haven't put it on the website yet, because I was afraid that it wasn't gonna come out good. But yeah, it turned out that it was fine. I'll show it to you guys next time. I mean, it said that it was going to be okay, the print quality, because of the because of the pixels and resolution, I should say, of the image. But it turned out to be actually not that bad. So I'll wear it. I'll show it to you next time. I love that. You think you fell out of a coconut tree?
Again, he was losing within the margin of error as well, but the trend here is really positive for Harris, obviously. Now, if you look at new polling released by Cook, you can see that she's drastically improved in swing states over Biden since May. So let's focus on the left side where they include third-party candidates, which I think gives you a more accurate picture of the race. So as you can see, Harris is now leading in Arizona by 4 points. Trump was ahead of Biden by 4 points in May. She's now tied in Georgia, whereas Trump was ahead by 4 in May. Now, when it comes to Michigan, she's up by 2. In Nevada, Trump's up by 5, but he was up by 8, so we've seen some improvement there. Now, in North Carolina, Harris is up by 2, whereas Biden was down by 8. And
that's pretty surprising. I have to say, I'm kind of glad I don't get a vote in this particular election.
May. Now, this is a red state.
Well, I understand. I understand. Because, like, you know, let's be honest, the situation and choices here are not great. They're not great. So I can understand that perspective.
State. So this is pretty big. In Pennsylvania, a must-win state, Harris is now up by 5, and Biden was down by 3 in May. Now in Wisconsin, she's up by 5. Biden was tied with Trump in May. So needless to say, she has made significant improvement since May. Now, the effect of third parties is also really interesting. So in most states, Harris does better when you include third parties, which indicates that RFK Jr. is pulling a significant number of voters away from Trump. And the only 2 states where Trump actually does better when you factor in third-party candidates are Nevada and Michigan, which makes sense since Michigan is where the uncommitted movement originated. So Harris still has some work to do there in terms of making the uncommitteds committed. And that
yeah, and like Michigan is quite important, I would say.
requires a very clear message on Gaza. So I hope that she improves there. Now, when it comes to Nevada, she's also running behind according to this poll, but I actually do think that she can pull off a win there since Biden did narrowly win that state back in 2020. But putting aside those caveats, this poll represents a substantial swing in Harris's favor since May. Like, this is shocking. She's only been a candidate for a couple of weeks now, less than a month, and she's made that much improvement. That is huge. You cannot over.
Yeah, Michigan is the key. I know who I'd vote for, but I'd hate doing it. That seems to be the common theme for the past, like, since I've been able to vote.
State how well she is currently doing. Now, there's another number that's improved for her approval rating. But the good news doesn't stop there, because when it comes to voter trust in the economy, Republicans have always had an advantage here. But Harris, for the first time that I can remember, has taken the lead on that front as well. And I say this because a Financial Times poll finds that a plurality of voters now trust Harris more on the economy than Donald Trump. I'll say it again. Voters now trust a Democrat more than a Republican on the economy.
Yeah, I am radical. I do believe that we need to get radical.
Radical Kamala raised money for a
Radical Kamala. Man, these attack ads. She's got to get the F out of Gaza. Yeah. Without that, Michigan continues to be a coin toss, and Michigan is an important state, if not the important state.
This is absolutely shocking and utterly devastating for Donald Trump, because Republicans have always had an advantage in polling when it comes to the economy. But right now, because of Harris, that is starting to change. Now, I think that Kamala can actually turn this plurality into a majority if she continues to promote progressive economic policies, because as much as Republicans scream socialism, understand that most Americans don't agree with their fear-mongering. Most Americans support progressive policies, as evidenced by this Data for Progress poll, which finds that policies like expanding Medicare, cutting drug prices, taxing the rich, expanding Social Security, rent caps, the child tax credit, affordable housing, raising the minimum wage, capping childcare costs, eliminating medical debt, Medicare for all, free college, and the PRO Act, they all have majority support. Now, Kamala Harris has leaned into some of these policies, but if she were to lean into all of them, she could be unstoppable. Now, she's since moved away from Medicare for All after initially supporting it in 2020, which I find thoroughly disappointing. And I think the reason why she got cold feet is because she got attacked by Republicans and the media for wanting to abolish private insurance. But I think that she should have trusted her initial instinct, because Medicare for All has always been a really popular policy.
Yeah, so like Donald Trump tried to do that. Donald Trump tried to do that in that bizarre, weird speech or press conference that he was just doing not an hour and a half ago. Basically trying to bring out the old nonsensical talking points against single payer systems, saying it was socialist, fear mongering about taking away private insurance, things like that. Yeah, the radical Kamala. Yeah, he's got to get new material. Calling Kamala another Dem socialist is just so absurd, at least by my standards. I agree. How does the dialectical interplay between geopolitical exigencies, ideological paradigms, social-cultural constructs, and institutional frameworks engender a kaleidoscope panorama of power dynamics within the intricate web of global political architecture? Jesus Christ, what a word salad. He's got to get new material.
And it's one of the few issues that really galvanizes the Democratic Party's base. And if she were to frame Medicare for All as an economic policy and tell people that they're effectively paying a private tax to insurance companies and Medicare for All would save them money and give them better health care, I'm telling you, sky's the limit. This is a change election, and I think that she knows this is a change election.
Yeah, I would say that like if she actually leaned into way more progressive policies, like she would steamroll the election.
So she shouldn't be afraid to embrace really bold policies like Medicare for All. But with that being said, she's ahead of Trump on the economy, which is undeniably impressive. So whatever she's doing, we need to see more of that because it's working. Now, here's where things take a shocking turn. And even I'm shocked by this. Kamala Harris is doing so well that some red states are now in play. That includes North Carolina, as you saw with the Cook poll, and as Axios reports here, she's now statistically tied with Trump in North Carolina. And if she were to win this state, she'd be the first Democrat to pull off a victory here since Obama in 2008. Now, perhaps even more shocking, Florida is now officially in play again. A USA Today Suffolk poll found that Harris is just 5 points behind Donald Trump, just outside the margin of error. Now, when I saw this, I assumed that the poll was an outlier. That is, until a Florida Atlantic University poll found that she's actually just 3 points behind Donald Trump. And get
it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Florida might be in play. Exactly, Michael Hassler. My great problems with getting big donors, though, although my best guess, heavy emphasis on guess, is that you're still right, even if all her rich supporters started giving it to Trump. Yeah, like, there would be no stopping it, because at that point, she would just drum up support, like, actual grassroots support, that it wouldn't matter if she did end up losing, like, corporate. In fact, I would argue that's probably a better outcome if that hypothetical were to play out. That's like having Texas in play. Yeah. No, it's more likely Florida to be in play than Texas, that's for sure. And 1 million people giving a few bucks adds up, too. No wonder Donald is pinning on the idea of Biden coming back. Yeah.
This 2 points behind Donald Trump when you factor in RFK Jr. 2 points. That is astonishing. But here's where it gets even worse for Donald Trump. There is an abortion measure on the ballot in November, which is definitely going to drive turnout among women, which means Harris could get a boost from them as well. So if she really is just 2 points behind Donald Trump, those women could easily put her over the edge.
I mean, maybe. Listen, folks, it's incredibly important. If you live in Florida, or you know people that live in Florida, remind them that this abortion measure is on the ballot. We talked about it yesterday, I believe. That amendment or measure, I think it's number 4, in Florida. There's one in Arizona. There's one in Missouri. There's a few. So if this applies to you, make sure you definitely show up for that.
This is huge. So Florida is officially in play. Now, whether or not she actually is able to win is an entirely different story, but it's in play. And even if she still isn't able to win that state, the fact that she's so close forces Trump to play defense and pour resources into a state that typically isn't competitive. He is now forced to divert attention.
I live in Florida, and to be honest, I thought about not even voting when Biden and Donald, but now I've changed my mind. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely reasons to show up to the ballot. Even if you're not excited, even if you're not excited about Harris, there are ballot initiatives that I would argue that are important to vote on.
Away from swing states that he needs to focus on in order to shore up support in a state that is theoretically safe for him, right? So it's not good news for Donald Trump, and that's 30 electoral votes that he absolutely cannot lose. So the fact that it's even this close should horrify him. But I do want to take a step back and look at some aggregate polling data to get a better sense of where she's at nationally. So average polling data from Real Clear Politics puts Harris ahead of Trump by about a point on average, which is lower than it was last week on Real Clear Politics. Although she has expanded her national lead in 538 polling averages, and we talked about this last week, but I think that the variation here is due to which polls these two aggregators include. 538 doesn't include junk polls like Rasmussen, so I tend to think that they offer a better snapshot of where voters are. Now, an average provided by Nate Silver gives her a slightly bigger national lead at about 3 points on average, but overall, the trend nationally is moving in her favor. Now, keep in mind that this is all just a snapshot in time.
Right. And also, calling with the local Dem groups to get people to make sure to call so they get their mail-in ballots. Oh, I see. Yeah. Based. Even if you end up deciding against voting for president, you can still go and vote for other things such as abortion measures. Exactly. And mind you, this Florida's in purgatory. It's the seventh ring of hell. Dante's Inferno, if you will. What was I going to say? And mind you, she has not been in this race for very long. If she pulls a national average of about 5 points, if she gets to a +5 and stays there, then I think it's done. I think I'll call it right there. If she manages to get +5 nationally, like average, and it maintains that way, I'll call it right then and there. Rick Scott is in play too. Really? I hope so, because screw that guy. I hope so. I hope so, because screw that guy. Nothing would give me much satisfaction than getting rid of that ghoul. If she catches Donald flat-footed in the first debate, that's game over too. He'll probably quit. Oh man, I don't think he can. I don't think he can quit. It's not an option for him, because if he quits, then he's done, right? Like, the whole point of him even staying in this race is to roll the dice and hopefully not go to jail. Not Rubio, got it. He's the new Senate leader. It'll be close. Especially those who live in Florida. I used to live in Florida, so I feel you. I used to live in Florida, so I feel you. Man, that would give me much satisfaction to see Rick Scott get defeated. I hope so.
Polls do tend to tighten as the election gets closer.
Yeah, he has to dodge jail time. Although, I'm sorry for being ignorant, isn't the popular in Florida actually pretty tight? Like, reliably red but tight? Like, Florida is generally pretty ruby red. these last couple of election cycles have been pretty ruby red. But I mean, according to this, it actually might be in play. Not that it's for sure, but it might be in play. Skeletor going down would be great. Yeah. I remember Bush Gore in Florida was the signing state, wasn't it? Yes, it was. Yes, it was, and not by literally razor thin. It was razor thin.
And even though Kamala Harris has officially taken the lead, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's definitely going to win this election, because things can change between now and November. And the support that she's seeing in polls might not,
the stolen state, exactly,
not actually translate into actual votes. So you never want to assume that the polls are foolproof and definitely going to indicate who is and isn't going to win, but they do offer us a good sense of where things are headed. And at this point, you cannot deny that Kamala Harris is absolutely surging, and that is really encouraging, especially after we all thought that a Trump victory was inevitable just like a month ago, right? Now, one thing I want to talk about is...
That's right, Jeb Bush stopped the count and recount, and SCOTUS awarded it to W. Thank you for the follow, I appreciate it, thank you.
Trump doing good in one metric, and that is he's not as hated as he was in 2020 and 2016. This is what Harriet Anton of CNN has talked about, and is why he's cautioning voters into reading too much into the polls currently, because Trump isn't as disliked. Now, that might change as time goes on. He still has a net unfavorable approval rating, whereas Kamala Harris is now breaking even, and Tim Walz is +5 or 6, and even 12 or 13, depending on the poll. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The anti-Trump fervor that we saw in the last elections might not play as big of a role, but the question is, why is Harris doing so well? Why is she defying expectations? And the answer is that she has improved her numbers among demographics that Biden was starting to lose. That includes Black and Latino voters, that includes young voters, but also, surprisingly, it includes non-college educated white voters who tend to skew Republican. Now, CNN's Harry Anton gives us some insight into this phenomenon.
Trump still leads. But look at that margin. It has shrunk significantly. It was 25 points back in May. It is now 14 points now here in August, nearly been sliced by half. Those numbers that Harris is putting up amongst that group right now are actually slightly better than Joe Biden did 4 years ago amongst those voters in those key states. Those are the types of numbers that Kamala Harris needs to put up in order to win. And of course, Joe Biden was like, I don't want to drop out of the race because I'm not sure that Kamala Harris can break in with this group, but it turns out she absolutely can.
Which is fascinating, because originally when they started, right, it was an immediate map expansion. They started looking at Georgia, North Carolina even, not giving up, but it seemed like sort of accepting that conventional wisdom. Correct. And now it's fascinating that may not be the case. So also the economy. When we look at that, we just were talking about that. That's an issue Trump has been extremely strong on. Is that changing?
It is. I mean, again, look, we're still...
And look where they all ended up. And look where they all ended up, huh?
Looking at Trump having a clear advantage amongst white working class voters in, the Great Lake battleground states. But again, the margin is shrinking, and elections are all about margins. You see it shrinking. You had a 36-point advantage in May. It's now down to 24 points here in August. These are the types of numbers that Kamala Harris needs to put up. And more than that, it's about the economy. This is also a change election, and it's also about change as well. And she's breaking through among white working class voters on the issue of change. So the economy and change working for her cohesively.
You're talking about Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin there. Obviously, those are crucial. That's that blue wall. But when you look more broadly, does this tip the scale as you look at other crucial must-win states?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Non-college whites are a key group across the board. They are a plurality of voters in the electorate when you compare.
Yeah. The simulacra is correct.
The college-educated whites or if you compare them with African Americans and Hispanics, and especially in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, look at that. They're the majority of voters. The fact that Harris is closing in on Trump with them is the big reason why she has those advantages she has now in those New York Times Siena College
Absolutely
polls
fascinating,
there.
and not what probably anybody expected, certainly from what Joe Biden was saying.
But a welcome thing for Democrats, definitely.
So Harris is expanding the Democratic Party's coalition in ways that Biden simply could not. And her appeal is way more broad than anyone expected it to be. So much so that she's now cutting into Trump's base. That right there speaks to the strength of her candidacy. But it's not just about her. Yes, she's doing good, but Trump is also doing bad. And part of the reason why he's doing so bad, aside from a piss poor campaign he's running, is that the strategy that he previously deployed against Biden has now blown up in his face, because he initially tried to make this election a referendum on Biden's age and mental acuity. But now that Biden is out of the race, voters are still thinking about age and mental acuity. And shocker, they're all looking at Donald Trump right now. Republicans wanted to make this about age and mental acuity, and it still is. And that's hurting him. That's why I think demographics who are usually more favorable to Republicans are moving towards Harris, because age is a very important factor to them. Now I'm going to...
Hey, Walter, welcome.
...play another clip from Harry Anton, who's going to explain why this is happening.
That was working for Donald Trump earlier on this campaign when his opponent was Joe Biden. Why? Too old to be president. Look at this. 78% of voters said in May that Joe Biden was too old to be president. But now the age issue is working against Donald Trump. Why? Because Kamala Harris is now the Democratic nominee. Look at this. Just 11% of likely voters say Kamala Harris is too old to be president. Now, if we come on to the other side of the board, look at that difference with Donald Trump. Look at this now. 58% of likely voters say Donald Trump is too old to be president. Now, that's up a little bit from May when it was 53%, but that 53% compared to 78% looked pretty gosh darn good. But now that 58% compared to that 11% for Kamala Harris, very bad news for Donald Trump. The messaging that Donald Trump and his
I don't know. She's 59? Yeah.
campaign have been putting forward earlier on this campaign has been flipped upside down.
She's only 59, but okay.
You could get 11% to agree on anything. 11% of people believe the moon landing was faked.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. Well, you wanted an explanation, Cat Pig. There you go.
Is it just about the age, or is this about the message, the change that this might bring in?
Yeah, all right. So you know what? We talk about age, but I think age is also a stand-in for change. And this is a change election. Look at this. Political or economic system in this country needs at least major change. Look at this. 2/3 of likely voters in the key battleground states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin believe that, in fact, the political and economic system in this country needs at least major change. Just 33% believe that it needs minor or no change. So the key nugget in this campaign is to be the candidate of change. If you are the candidate of change, you will win.
And who is leading on that front, the candidate of change?
Right, exactly. The age issue is working against Donald Trump. The change issue is now working against Donald Trump. We'll bring the right kind of change. Again, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, among likely voters. Look at this. Kamala Harris at 51%. Close by is Donald Trump at 47%. What I will note, Sarah, is these numbers look identical, basically, to what we see in the horse race, which was Harris ahead by 4 points. And you're seeing that right here on We'll Bring the Right Kind of Change. Harris ahead, again, by 4 points. So all of a sudden in this campaign, a campaign that has been about age and been about change, it was working for Donald Trump, and now it is working against him, and that is why Kamala Harris has all this momentum.
Very interesting.
Now, to expand on what Anton is saying here, when Biden was still in the race, he was the incumbent, and voters were dissatisfied with him, and they thought that the country was headed on the wrong track, and his approval rating dipped into the 30s, which is very, very bad for a sitting president who wants to be reelected, which is why he was losing. Now, in that dynamic, Trump was viewed as the change candidate who was offering voters something other than the incumbent. Even though he was a president himself, he was still the alternative. And voters usually gauge who they're going to vote for based on how they're feeling right now. So if they feel like they don't like the way that things are going, they blame the president. Republican, Democrat, they blame the president, and they vote for the other party. Voters aren't as partisan as we'd all like to think, right? They're much more mushy and malleable. But now, Harris is widely viewed as the change candidate because even though she's the vice president, she's not a former president. So she has the opportunity to chart a totally different path. And whether or not voters want change is always going to be something that we have to look out for. Because back in 2008, remember, Obama literally ran on change after 8 years of Bush and the disastrous Iraq War. And then after 8 years of
That's true. Obama was 47, Clinton 46, and JFK was 43. I'm not a MAGA, but I have a problem with everyone thinking Kamala was a moderate, centrist, lukewarm Lino? Liberal in name only? A month ago, and now she's a savior? Well, I don't know about savior. It's more like we're talking degrees here. Because like we were looking at a Joe Biden versus Trump ticket, and her coming into this race instead of Joe Biden kind of like really breathed some oxygen here. Right, it was almost a certain Trump win a month ago. Correct. That's pretty much what it is here. Not specifically, but the general attitude among Democratic voters. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. No one is excited about Kamala. They're just excited that she stands a better chance of beating the tyrannical orange Kool-Aid man. Yeah. Right, better than what we had. Kamala, if elected, will be the first Gen X POTUS by a hair.
Obama, voters were fed up again with the establishment, and they felt like Hillary Clinton was
Braylio, I'm sorry I didn't say hi. Welcome. Cheeto Man.
The ultimate establishment insider, whereas Trump then represented a change to the status quo. Now in 2020, a global pandemic hit, and that changed all of our lives. And Trump couldn't meet the moment. And voters once again wanted change. They wanted somebody in office who would act like an adult and handle the public emergency with the seriousness that it warranted. Now, once again, we are in a situation where voters are feeling economic anxiety and they're worried about the trajectory the country is on, and they want change. And since Harris represents change, that's why she has so much momentum in her favor. And so long as voters continue to see her as change and she continues to push this narrative that she's the change candidate, I think this momentum can continue. Now, the only question is, how long can she sustain this momentum? Can she sustain this momentum all the way until November 5th? Now, it's difficult to say. Nobody knows for sure. Again, usually polls tighten up as we get closer to the election. But I will say, as it stands right now, Harris is in a really good spot, and she is defying everyone's expectations. And if she keeps this up, she could win.
Yeah, it's basically...
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Why don't they put tan cream on Donald's eyelids or hairline? You asking the real questions there. I don't... It took the accumulation of dementia for the boomers to finally let it go. Pathetic, and thank God. Kamala Harris, the POTUS with the X Factor. The Gen X Factor. Speaking of which... They got what they wanted. They put another lib DNC friendly candidate, but they were happy because it's not him or him. Yeah. Harris to propose federal ban on corporate price gouging in food and groceries. Comrade Kamala Harris plans to propose the first ever federal ban on corporate price gouging in the food and grocery industry. Her campaign announced late Wednesday. Today. There's a big difference between fair pricing in competitive markets and excessive prices unrelated to the cost of doing business, said Harris. The Harris campaign in a statement. Americans can see that difference in their grocery bill. Well, the issue is that food is something that, and this is true, okay? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but food is something that you actually need, right? I know it's a shocking revelation, but food, it turns out that you actually need that. So it does not matter if eggs cost $5 or $10. You need to eat. And when you have a situation like that, markets, the room for failure is there. The room for market failure is there, and corporations will take advantage of that, right? Because like, what are you going to do? Not buy groceries? Candidates should be asked to pass the SAT and IQ test if they want to run. Wait, we cannot live on air? No, unfortunately not. The proposed ban is part of a broader economic policy platform that the Democratic presidential nominee plans to unveil Friday at a campaign rally battleground, North Carolina. Harris will also pledge, if elected president, that she will direct her administration to increase scrutiny of potential mergers between large supermarkets and food producers, specifically for the risk that the proposed merger would raise grocery prices for consumers. Which is true. The package of regulatory proposals is one of Harris's campaign's earliest effort to outline an economic platform that is independent of President Biden's agenda. Before Biden abruptly dropped out of the race in July and endorsed Harris, he had spent more than a year campaigning for re-election and blaming corporate greed for consumer prices driven higher by inflation. Harris's plan still sits firmly within the overall Biden approach to regulation, however, which has prioritized consumer protections across a range of industries and sued to block several massive corporate mergers. In March, the White House launched the Strike Force of Unfair and Illegal Pricing, a joint initiative between the Justice Department and the FTC. On Friday, Harris will single out the meat industry, saying that soaring meat prices have accounted for a larger part of America's higher grocery bill, even as meat processing companies register record-breaking profits following the pandemic. The Democratic presidential nominee will also unveil proposals intended to bring down consumer costs in other two sections where corporations have aggressively exercised their pricing powers: prescription drugs and housing. Harris's speech will come 2 days after her opponent, former President Trump, gave his own economic policy speech in North Carolina, where he blamed Harris for high prices of consumer goods. Quote, "You're paying the price for Harris' liberal extremism at the gas pump, at the grocery counter, and on your mortgage bill." Nearly a month into her campaign, Harris has already raised Trump's lead over Biden in national and swing state polls. But Trump still maintains his long-standing advantage over Democrats when it comes to which candidate voters will believe is best for the economy. So, yeah, apparently what she wants to do is put a price cap or eliminate the ability for corporations to price gauge on food and groceries. So obviously, naturally, the right wing would come up with a reasonable response. Let's check in quickly with Tim Pool and see what he's got. Oh. Yeah, apparently attempting to slow down corporate greed is communism. Communism is when government controls prices on consumer goods, apparently. I've been reading a Substack on competition and monopoly actions of Biden government and private lawsuits, and it certainly seems like there's been a huge change and some successes. Quite a few mergers were blocked or called off due to resistance. What Mr. Poole doesn't get is that capitalism requires functioning markets to work. Well, work somewhat, right? But like, he doesn't understand the concept of capitalism, and he doesn't understand the concept of communism either, because it turns out, and this is true, communism is not when the government sets price controls on consumer goods. Communism is a classless, stateless, moneyless society where the workers own the means of production. And that's not government regulation. Okay, government regulation is not communism by any stretch of the imagination. So we can see that. So we can see that they've got nothing. This is the counter argument here, because Trump said the same thing. By the way, I'm not just singling out Tim Pool for the sake of singling him out. Trump said the same thing. We have been unburdened by what has been. Yes, thank you. Comrade Kamala has unburdened us. What we had, and I'm in East Germany, was a socialist state that aspired to achieve communism. Price control isn't communism, it's liberalism. Right. Well, it's not communism. I know that. And market controls are not communism. Okay, I think we have time for this one. Market controls are necessary for capitalism to function somewhat, right? And even then, like, doesn't that kind of like go against like these hyper capitalist dogmatic kind of ideologues who think that like the market doesn't need any type of control or regulation? Communism would be state control of farms and distribution. Well, no, the workers would be the ones that are in charge of the means of production, right? The workers would be the ones in charge of the farms and distribution and factories and whatever, everything, right? And we wouldn't have per se the same system economically. We would have essentially a stateless, moneyless society. It wouldn't be necessary. I'm not a fan of capitalism. However, capitalism cannot function without competition, and due to various factors, and often requires government intervention. Right, but that's the contradiction in capitalism, because capitalism, while pretending to need competition, actually aims to eliminate competition. It's kind of like a feedback loop, right? Like it kind of needs competition, but it aims to eliminate competition. So you kind of have that scenario where the snake eats its own tail, right? Because at the end of the day, the goal is monopoly, right? If you're a capitalist, you want sole control. You want to go as vertical as possible. You want to go as vertical as possible because that's winning the game. You want everything. That's the whole point. The state should just maintain the infrastructure that facilitates the distribution of goods and services. Each individual capitalist tries to defeat their competition, yeah, but collectively capitalists should work together to ensure competition stays. Right, but they don't want that, though, because that's not how that works. That's not how the money keeps, flowing, right? The way the money keeps flowing is I want to make sure that I have no competition and that no one else can take that from me, and I can expand that to fill my pockets. That's how they should act, logically speaking, my honest opinion. But many don't act that way. The reason why is because there's no incentive to. That's not how capitalism works. There's no incentive to act that way. There's no incentive to act that way. If I'm Elon Musk, or if I'm whatever, what's that guy's name? Oh, Christ. The Amazon guy, Jeff Bezos. I have no incentive. I want it all. Yeah, Bezos, that's right. I want it all. I want the digital market on books. I want the digital market on media. I want the digital market on online shipping. I want the digital market on the online stores. I want everything. Because there's no need for there to be competition. I just want people to come to me, right? So like it's inherently contradictory, right? I should make the exception what I said earlier, probably the most capitalist, but those not at the very top like Bezos, right? But every capitalist wants to be like that and moves in that direction, right? Like if you're a capitalist, I'm talking about like a real capitalist, like you have capital and you own the means of production. You are a capitalist, then you will move in that direction. There's no incentive for you to be like, oh, well, I think things should be fair. And I think that, businesses should have healthy competition. Like that's not how that works. Capitalism is afraid of communism because of the underlying fear of monopoly. Biden said he's a capitalist today. He said that multiple times. That's true. I'm the guy that beat the socialist. Well, and humans generally are not that good at long-term thinking.
There does seem to be some panic within Republican circles about what's going on. You're starting to see people say, like, he's going to dump Vance. I don't think he'll do that. You're also starting to see, like, Trump going out at, in front of donors and blaming Vance for stuff, which, shoe might fit a little bit. But this is going to really scare the Trump people. Here is CNN's Harry Enton. And one of the things that we talked about, the value of an Andy Bashir or a Tim Walz, is that they can go into places in between the rural areas, not, beat Trump there, but can carry a message that might ever so slightly close the gap a little bit, because this is so much about margins. They sent Andy Bashir to Forsyth County. I imagine you'll start to see Walz go into places like Georgia and, even North Carolina.
One of the issues with liberals is that they think they're leftists and socialists until they're put in a position where they have to harm capitalism or corporatism. Yeah, I mean, like the distinct difference between liberals and leftists, whether you're a lowercase leftist or a lowercase socialist, or whatever you want to call yourself on the left. It's basically the issue of capitalism, right? Because that's what divides the left and the right. The left tends to be anti-capitalist, however much sentiment you have, however much anti-capitalist sentiment you have, depends on how left you are, and how much capitalism you're willing to show for is how much on the right you are. There are lots of liberals that are socially progressive, and they will be allies in terms of fighting for rights and things like that. But when it comes to actually the topic of capitalism, that's when you see the real shift there. Rift, not shift.
And you'll see them definitely, obviously, throughout Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. And it just seems like, just off the top of the bat, like, I don't know if it's a function of Walz, but this I found really surprising, particularly at this stage.
So, Harry.
Hi, I'm Tim Walz.
Hey.
And I'm proud to be Kamala's pick for vice president. If we want to win in November, we need grassroots supporters.
We know, obviously, you look at the overall polls, you see these swing state polls, the ones over the weekend from Siena did stand out. We'll see if that's really where this goes. But you found something very interesting in terms of one group that stands out.
White working class voters, voters
I
without
think
a college
we went
degree.
over
That
this.
is Donald Trump's core group. That was the reason why he was able to break down that giant blue wall.
One slice of pie, a cohort, white working class, older people, largely also white people. Joe Biden won, in 2020, younger people, people of color, black, brown, Asian, women. Joe Biden's cohorts have grown. Donald Trump's cohorts have shrunk. So even if the pie, the percentages, the cohorts still go to where they went last time, Biden would win, on that coalition, by millions more votes than he did in 2020 because those segments of the population are simply more populous than they were. There are more people in them than they were in 2020. It's not just the basic, people die, old people die, and there's more younger people. It's also like the generations. Generation X was smaller relative to the boomers, but the boomers are starting to go off. The millennials are huge. And so if she's outpacing Biden in the cohort that Trump won, you're starting to get into, and it's very early for this stuff, but you're starting to get into the potential of what would constitute in this day and age a landslide. That's not, we're not in, 1972 anymore. We're not going to have a landslide, but like a very, very robust win, considering.
I mean, that's considered a landslide nowadays, right? Right. Example, Article 23 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is everyone has the right to work, free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions to work and protect against unemployment.
Where we've been, back down to like 2008 type of levels. Slightly different coalition, perhaps, but we'll see. We'll continue with this.
Can break in with this group, but it turns out she absolutely can.
Which is fascinating because originally when they started, right, it was an immediate map expansion. They started looking at Georgia, North Carolina even, not giving up, but it seemed like sort of accepting that conventional wisdom. Correct. And now it's fascinating that may not be the case. So also the economy. When we look at that, we just were talking about that. That's an issue Trump has been extremely strong on. Is that
okay? I think
the fact
we
that
went over
Harris
this.
is closing in on Trump with them is the big reason why she
3 months.
Why she has those advantages she has now in those New York Times Siena College
absolutely
polls.
Fascinating.
I mean, it's a big deal, and it's got to make them panic. Now, just to be clear, it's August 14th. We have 3 months to go, and the cohort of people who are going to ultimately make the difference in this election don't start engaging for another month. And everyone who's hearing the sound of my voice or seeing my image right now are atypical relative to sort of like how people follow politics. There's a lot, obviously. I mean, a significant, the majority of the country, without a doubt, is following this race at this point. But the cohort that could end up deciding it is not. So this could all change. But if the election was held with these type of numbers holding fast, it would be nuts. With that,
if someone started college but dropped out, say after 2 years of a 3-year degree, do they count as non-college or college? Yeah, I think there's an option for some college, right? I didn't see the freeze frame. Although it doesn't differentiate here. It just says non-college whites, college whites, and then black or Hispanic. Numbers on that only add up to 90, so some college might be in the remaining 10. Yeah, possibly. Or, polls are never like 100%. I don't like, yeah.
Without a doubt, is following this race at this point. But how Harris matches up with different groups and how she matches up with Trump on different characteristics. Again, we'll see what happens with the Democratic convention. There's going to be a lot of protests there. We'll see if that inhibits things. Who knows what could come up in the next 3 or 4 months. But this is not a good sign for Trump either. If Republicans start to distance themselves from Trump, you're going to start to see the indication of that from the sort of lobbyist class and from the sort of big name never Trumpers who had signed on and became Trumpers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, the Lincoln Project people. They're orphaned. But when you look at someone, let's say, like Kevin McCarthy, who is going to have to do business, and his whole thing is going to be doing business within the Republican Party. He may, who knows what he's going to, he may end up, trying to become Republican chair, but who knows if that's going to happen under a Trump. But I found this pretty interesting, that McCarthy is out there and starting to criticize Trump.
And you've got to make this race not on personalities. Stop questioning the size of her crowds and start questioning her position.
It'd be funny if Vance went back to being an anti-Trumper before the election. Man, if that happens, like, it's GG. He's getting canned. If that happens, he's getting although I would laugh. I would find that very funny.
Comes to what did she do as Attorney General on crime? Question what did she do when she's supposed to take care of the border as a czar? Question that they brought inflation. And she was the tie-breaking vote when it came to inflation, when it came to IRS agents. This is a perfect person to run against. You thought John Kerry was a flip-flopper? She is the biggest flip-flop with the most extreme positions, and you got a short time frame to do it. So don't sit back, get out there and start making the case and use her own words to do it to her.
You raise money.
Okay, now if you're out there criticizing the campaign, like, you're not seeing any big name Democrats going out there and criticizing Harris and Walz right now.
And McCarthy isn't like a Trump antagonist usually, and especially even going down for the speakership, he's still even being considered, or at least prior to this, there were reports that in a potential next Trump administration, he would be.
Hey, Bond, how's it going?
Considered for like White House chief of staff. Like he's not someone who just like that's making any like.
Let me tell you what he's doing here is he's hedging his bets.
Right.
He is starting to build some type of narrative for the Republican Party post-Trump here, which is stunning that this is happening in August. And it's not major, and that's not the way he's going to do it. But this is the way that politicians work. They plant a couple of seeds. If things turn around, he'll never pursue this stuff again. But you don't see people going out there and criticizing Harris and Walz's campaign. They won't do that now. And then this I found also fascinating because you remember there was this Republican candidate.
It's going well. I thought I was going to see tornadoes earlier in South Florida. Jeez. Yeah, I agree, Cat Pig. Smart of McCarthy from his position. They can feel, hey, Coherent Screams, they can feel the November 5th loss already, and they're getting out ahead of it. Yep. Now imagine JD running through through Mar-a-Lago screaming, Mike Pence is a hero.
Who was staying on the ballot in the primaries and drawing some actual votes, even though she clearly could not win. And you may have already forgotten who she is because she appeared at the convention and literally took the knee. I mean, I don't literally take the knee. Like she almost brought here's some, whatever, frankincense and myrrh from, and brought it up to Trump's throne at the Republican National Convention. But here she is, realizing, maybe it's time for me to sort of fire up the engine again. Not for this race, but she's already looking at 2028.
This campaign to win. But the campaign is not going to win talking about crime.
Oh, man. Yeah. Welcome to Ponder Monkey. Trump has lost the limelight and momentum. The narrative betting on Trump now is very risky.
Crowd sizes. It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is. It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb. It's not. You can't win on those things. The American people are smart. Treat them like they're smart.
Do you think the campaign is missing the mark on those things?
Meet your next pillow. Why do we make our pillow in the shape of a cube? I'll tell you.
I think the campaign needs to focus. That's the main thing. Look, this is a winnable election, but you need to focus. Who is your target market? Your target market is suburban women, college-educated, independents, and conservative Democrats. That's your target market. The target issues are the...
Welcome, Zio Duke. Welcome back. The American people are smart. They know their pillows. True. Jesus, Coherent Screams. Wow. That's pretty scary.
Economy, the fact that Kamala wants to raise taxes, the fact that she's taken money from those that didn't go to college and has given it to those that did, the fact that when Afghanistan fell, the fact that
that's not how that works, but
when
okay.
They lifted sanctions on Iran, the fact that when they, actually said that they would help Israel and then pulled back, where was
that didn't happen.
Kamala when that happened? She was sitting right next to Joe Biden in the situation.
All right. I mean, aside from like me wishing that all of those things that she said had happened, it is the idea that Donald Trump is not going to win an election, is going to win an election based upon policy is just absurd. I mean, it's just absurd. I mean, the reason why he was able to beat Hillary Clinton, there was a lot of reasons. I mean, some of which were, her failures, some of which were James Comey's failures. But the formula that Trump used was to pull her onto like personal back and forth, because that's all he knows how to do.
Mm-hmm. In fact, does she in fact know what a fact is? No, she's dealing in, oh man, what is it that they called it? Something reality? Substitute reality? What did they say? Not alternative facts. It escapes me. It escapes me. No, not alternate reality. It starts with an S. It starts with an S. Oh man. What is it? Subjective reality. Yeah, I think it's subjective reality. I feel like that's closer to what I was thinking about. Yeah, she's dealing in subjective reality. I still got to deal with flash floods, rock slides, and mudslides, wildfires, and earthquakes. I think avalanches are the only natural disaster I'm safe from. Sheesh. Oh, the context is that instead of alternative facts, they said something to the effect of like, oh, they're living in subjective reality. I forget exactly the quote. If I remember, I'll find it. A-Bond, 69 biddies, thank you.
The idea that Donald Trump is going to run a campaign based upon policies only is just absurd. He exhausts his possibilities after he says immigrants are nasty, psychopaths from insane asylums. Like, that's his big policy stretch. So when Kevin McCarthy and Nikki Haley go out and start saying this stuff, they are not talking about the Trump campaign. They are creating a narrative that they hope to sort of regain control of the Republican Party if this thing goes down in flames. And it's just fascinating to me that they're doing this in August. Like, this is the type of stuff you start to see in mid-October when they think they're going to lose. Not in mid-August. Keep a watch on this, because to see who else starts to say these type of things. Because nobody, what is it? Losing campaigns are all orphans or whatever. I don't know. There's some saying. But it's fascinating to see this going on with these two, in these circles, and they're doing it on Fox. It's not like they're saying this on I don't know where else they would go on.
Submissive reality is actually good. I feel that submissive reality because it bows to his whim. Substandard reality.
Yeah. Well, no, he's in jail.
I know he's talking with somebody the other day. He's broadcasting still.
Is he broadcasting still?
Unless I saw an old clip, maybe I'll check that out.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
Could be the head of a paper on the delusions of genius of the hyper rich. I forget the exact quote, but it was something to the, I'm just paraphrasing, that Democrats are living in a sub whatever reality. Yeah, that's the only reason. Submarine reality too soon. Mwah, mwah. Okay, folks. Vance and Waltz agreed to a vice presidential debate on October 1st hosted by CBS News. So there you have it, folks. Not much else here. If we have the opportunity, we might broadcast it on the Discord, just because this might actually be an interesting debate. But yeah, mark the calendars. October 1st. Excuse me. October 1st with does it say? No, it doesn't say what time. So fucking weird. I had a dream we won the White House, kept the Senate, won Congress. I woke up and never gonna happen. Maybe my subconscious is reading the tea leaves or something. I'm starting to look at it possible, albeit unlikely. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. The debate is going to be at SmackDown. Vance is going to get rolled, and that dude doesn't work the real day in his life after he got his law degree, and it's going to show. Yep. There is a path. There is a path for that, Cat Pig. It's not in stone, but it's plausible. That's for sure. I think we went over some of this already. Oh no, this is for the Senate. Republican Senate candidates are trailing further behind Democratic rivals in 4 key swing states. A Cook Political Reports GS Strategy Group BSG Swing State Project survey shows that Democratic Senate hopefuls running in Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania have increased their vote share over the Republican challengers compared to a previous survey in May. The only state where a Republican candidate had improved their vote share is Wisconsin, where Republican Eric Hovde has gone from being 12 points behind Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin to 7 points. In Arizona, Democratic Senate hopeful Representative Ruben Gallego has increased his lead over former gubernatorial hopeful Kari Lake from 5 to 9 points, so that's nice. Michigan Democratic Representative Elisa Slotkin leads the race for the state Senate against GOP former GOP Representative Mike Rogers by 8 points, an increase of 6 for Slotkin since May. In Pennsylvania, Democratic Senator Bob Casey leads the 2022 Senate candidate David McCormick by 13 points. In the previous poll, Casey led McCormick by 8. So there you have it, folks. In Nevada, Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen is currently leading Republican candidate Sam Brown by 18 points, up from 7 in the May survey. Reacting to the poll, spokesperson for Lake told Newsweek that Cook Political is notoriously bad at polling and predicting elections. In 2020, they were wrong on 27 to 28 races. Kari Lake is likely going to win. Sure. The 2 remaining swing states of Georgia and North Carolina are not holding Senate elections in November. However, in a generic congressional ballot with no-named candidates, Cook Political Report data shows that both states have flipped from Republican to Democratic between 2 surveys. Despite a strong showing in the swing states, Cook Political reports that the overall Senate map continues to be daunting for Democrats who currently control the upper chamber by 51 to 49, including 4 independents who caucus or align with the party. Democrats Montana Senator John Tester remains the most in peril in the Senate. In the state where Trump won by 2020 by 16 points, followed by Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown and Trump plus 8 state. Sent Jessica Taylor to Senate and Governor's editor Cook for Cook Political Report wrote in her analysis. As we previously detailed, the map essentially starts out at 50-50, with Republicans assured to pick up the open seat in West Virginia. Therefore, Democrats cannot afford to lose any incumbents and must keep the White House as well. But even if Tester and Brown were to lose, Democrats may be able to halt any further losses if these numbers hold through November. So there you go. Maybe coherent screams, maybe. Likely. It doesn't sound too encouraging. No, I don't know. I think it's in the positive more than it is in the negative because, like, the Senate is already looking pretty dicey. Like, basically, there's no room for error here, and it is possible that they might hold on to the Senate, provided that everything goes right. We'll have to see. Oh, as in late. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, we kind of want 60-40 in the Senate. Well, 62, really. I wish. Just hope for House and President. Arizona ballot leaflets can call fetuses unborn human beings, the court has said. Arizona is set for a ballot initiative to decide whether abortion should be a constitutional right. If passed, it would allow abortions up to 24 weeks. As Arizona prepares to give voters a choice of whether to enshrine abortions as a constitutional right in November, the state Supreme Court has ruled that the informational pamphlet sent out to all voters can use the phrase unborn human being to refer to embryo or fetuses, which is absolutely freaking gross and underhanded, I should say. It is manipulation. What can I call the tumor an undeveloped human clone? Sure. What about D's? D's? Why they always got to mess with stuff? To scare girls, they're sick freaks. I agree. The court said on Wednesday the language substantially complies with impartiality requirements. Bro, come on. Backing the majority Republican Legislative Council that drafted the language, the two justices assented. The ruling noted that the phrase is used in existing legislation but did not explain the justice's thinking in further detail. A full opinion will be released later. Arizona for Abortion Access, which is leading the ballot measure to campaign and sued to change the language, said in a statement posted on social media that the court's decision means Arizona voters won't get to learn about the question on their ballot in a fair, neutral, and accurate way, but will instead be subjected to biased, politically charged words. Yes, exactly. We are deeply disappointed in this ruling, but will not be deterred from doing everything in our power to communicate to voters the truth of Arizona Abortion Access Act and why it's critical to vote yes to restore and protect access to abortion care this fall. If passed, the Arizona vote would allow abortion until fetal viability, or about 24 weeks, at the point where the fetus can survive outside the womb. The state currently bans abortions in most cases after 15 weeks. Ben Toma, the Arizona Speaker and co-chair of the Legislative Council that drafted the language, said the wording is intended to help voters understand the current law according to the AP. The Arizona Supreme Court ruling is correct. The Supreme Court The Supreme Court's decision overturned an earlier ruling by a judge from the Maricopa County Superior Court who said the term unborn human being was packed with emotion and partisan meaning, which, and ordered it to be replaced with a neutral term. In his ruling, the judge added that there was plenty of evidence that not every word chosen by the legislature was neutral in character. While Wednesday's ruling affect what can be printed on the informational pamphlets, the language of the ballot measures itself is determined by the Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, whose office has said the phrase will not appear there. The legal wrangling over the phrase unborn human being comes amid a wider debate about abortion and fetal personhood, the point at which a fetus becomes a person with legal rights. This is pretty underhanded tactics. So the TLDR is that don't let this fool you. This is gross underhanded tactics by Republicans, and make sure that if you are in Arizona or know people in Arizona, to make sure you vote yes for the right to bodily autonomy. Right, no politicians in the exam room, please. Right, and this provides all of that. That provides all of that coherent screams. I'd like a dozen apples, hands you a packet of apple seeds. Can we call a bowl of batter a cake now? Yep. Fun historical note, women's rights in East Germany are still lower than 1989. To be fair, a lot higher than West Germany. Jeez. Leaving a lot of potential humans in the sofa. I see what you did there. Alright, folks, I gotta get going. It's past 7, folks. It's time for me to go. Thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you for hanging out in the stream. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Astor, for modding the chat. Exactly. A bowl of batter equals unbaked cake. Exactly. It is Friday Junior, folks. It is basically the weekend already. Thank you all for stopping by. We'll be back Monday. Don't forget, folks, if you enjoy the content, don't forget, hit the follow button. Hit the like button on the YouTube. Subscribe. Do the awesome stuff. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the biddies. Thank you for the subscriptions. If you want to keep supporting the channel, there are many different ways. Consider checking out the awesome, cool new merch store. Join the Discord, folks. We will have a movie night at the last Saturday of the month. We're going to be streaming Dune 2, so stay tuned. And thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you for the stream. Take care and stay safe, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate that, Kitty Swain. We should approach any politician voting against bodily autonomy and eating omelet a chicken abortionist. Thank you, Zio Duke. I appreciate it. Folks, as always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. We all hope to see you guys in the next one, Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya! Phew! Hang tight, folks. All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.